Today we're out at the 2025 LA Auto Show and there are tons of EVs out here. And it's not just the number of them, but the range of them that I love to see. From fun and quirky to very everyday practical, though those probably aren't the categories you're directly shopping in. So let's take a look around the show. We have picked out a few in segments that you probably are shopping for, and we also have some favorites. So in this video, we're going to talk about quite a few cars, look at a few less, but if you see one you like or have more questions about, if we've had a deeper dive into it, we'll go ahead and put that up on the screen or down in the description. But we're going to start here in our budget category, which is sort of a tight one when it comes to EVs, because they're usually a little bit more expensive than gasoline counterparts. But the two standouts to me are the Chevy Bolt and the Nissan Leaf. And if I didn't mention, the rule is they have to be here at the show to be talked about. And while I'm glad the Bolt is coming back, it's sort of a holdover. I'm not really sure what the future of the Bolt holds, and they didn't change a whole lot from when it left, which means that it's almost sort of a generation behind. I like options, but the option I really like in the budget category is going to be the Nissan Leaf, because MSRP starts under $30,000, although after destination, just about 31 and change. But with that, you get 303 miles of driving range. It's one of the first questions about EVs, and this starting range of 300 is fantastic. There are obviously much bigger EVs, and some we'll talk about in the rest of the video, that don't quite make that at any point in time. Though the only downside is, as you add features, you're going to lose that range, and you end up paying more, so a bit of a trade-off. But the feature set is pretty fantastic. You have very cool lighting throughout, that's both front and rear. You also have plenty of room for passengers, tons of screen real estate, and I think one of my favorites is going to be the electrochromatic roof, normally found in a higher end option, but certainly available here at the very, very top end. That's budget friendly, but not the most family friendly. And when it comes to people haulers, we need space. Some of them have lots of space, something like the Cadillac Escalade IQ, but with a lot of space comes a pretty big price tag because it has a whole lot of features that you might not be able to get the most out of. If you want something more practical, the Volkswagen ID Buzz is really easy to live with. Sliding doors, easy to get in and out of, nice and tall, tons of space inside there as well while being a little bit smaller, but falls short on things like performance and also on driving range, which I think is probably the more important of those two. But the EV9 here, well, that does a really good job of balancing pretty much the whole mix. And it doesn't do it necessarily better than the Ioniq 9, but I think it does it a little bit more uniformly. The Ioniq 9 is a little bit strange when it comes to the styling. I enjoy it. I think less people are going to dive right towards it and maybe need to warm up a little bit faster. If you want something that's going to be right out of the box, something you love, that's probably this. You can get 7 or 6 seats. You can get a smaller battery and rear-wheel drive if you need the space, but not all the other amenities. Of course, all-wheel drive and a larger battery available. That'll get you about 280 miles of driving range. It's nice and fast charging, though not the quickest of the Kia Hyundai EVs out there. But this ends up being, I think, a really good value, especially considering a lot of the other cars on this list end up being or can be quite a bit more expensive, and you're getting a lot here in the EV9. That's what it takes to get the family around, but what about you and your day-to-day driving? Probably something smaller, and while I wish there were more sedans or hatchbacks available, maybe even a few coupes, most of this is going to be built up of crossovers. And actually, General Motors has built the widest range of crossovers in this segment, though I think my favorite right now still is the Honda Prologue. Yes, the Honda is my favorite GM electric model at the moment, or at least mostly my favorite. They also have to give a shout out to Ford's Mustang Mach-E, which is sort of equally but differently controversial. It's the four-door electric Mustang, but it's outselling those Mustangs, and I love the wagon look. So it's actually one of the more interesting looking versions. But it's also maybe a little bit harsh on your day-to-day drive, and that's why I've chosen the Hyundai Ioniq 5 as my go-to choice. It shares a lot of stuff underneath of it with both the EV6 and the Ioniq 6, but you actually get a little bit more space inside here, and I think that's why it wins in the daily category. Let me show you some of that space while I tell you more about it. This starts out at $36,600, and you can get it with a big battery or a small battery. You can get it in rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and there are plenty of other variations as well. We have an XRT, which is more off-road oriented, but probably better for just more off-pavement driving. You also have a high-performance variant. That's going to be the Ioniq 5N. Not quite in the same daily driver category, but it does still have all the space, and that's all the space I have here. That's all the room you have in the back. And if there's no other indicator that this is a good daily driver, if you look right behind me, there's a Waymo version, because the Ioniq 5 is soon going to be, well, something you don't have to daily drive. You can daily ride without a driver at all. What if your adventure needs a little bit more serious capability? Not just for fun, but for serious off-roading. Not something EVs have been known for historically, though there are a few nameplates like Hummer that are known to be off-road capable and currently exist in the EV space. But that Hummer has some limitations. Capability, but limitations. And one thing you're gonna find there is big, chunky, heavy, and also quite expensive. There's a new kid on the block though, and it's from a brand you know for their off-roading. That's here at Jeep. This is the Recon, starting at about $66,000, which is well short of what you could buy a Hummer for. It's got the same platform underneath as you find in the Jeep Wagoneer S and the new Dodge Charger, which is sort of an interesting combination, but this has a few things that you would expect in a Jeep that the Wagoneer S doesn't have. Ground clearance is one of them. We're looking at just about 9 inches of ground clearance here. We certainly have big, knobby, beefy tires. We have 650 horsepower. It's also, as you can tell, a Jeep, which means we have all the fun that Jeep is known for built into this EV. And while you can take the roof off of a Hummer, there is no soft top option like we find in here. And you still have to find a place to park it. This is gonna be much easier to do. The big problem here is only 230 miles of driving range. That's because of all the capability built in, doesn't lend itself to efficiency. But if you're looking at an off-road vehicle that runs on pure electricity, I think right now, this is the answer. What about the vehicle that can take you anywhere and do just about anything? You and friends, most likely. And in this case, it has to be electric. I'll admit that while there are lots of capable SUVs out there, what jumps to mind is a truck. And the Rivian R1T is a great example of a lifestyle adventure truck. It's got air suspension, tons of power, up to 4 different motors, and it has a really nice look, easy to drive around town. But if you want to make sure you can do all of it, this is probably the answer. This is the Sierra EV, specifically the AT4, because that's the more off-road oriented version. Not only does it look a little bit more truck-like up front, I think the most of these EVs GM variants, and actually on that note, it shares a lot with the Silverado Trail Boss, but I like this one a little bit better. Not just the front, but also probably what's going on inside. And what's going on underneath is a ton of power. We're looking at over 700 horsepower, 0 to 60 under 5 seconds, so that's not anything you'd really need. What you want is the driving range. 410 miles is what you get in the extended range battery. There is a max range battery that'll get you over 450 miles, and you can tap into all that battery power. I think perfect for something like an RV. Of course, this can tow a ton, well, many tons. It can also go ahead and power a lot. 240 volts capable here, and you can also go ahead and plug it into your house and use that as battery backup power. And when I think can do everything, that's one of the things that a lot of vehicles are not going to be able to check off the list, not as well as this. And last but not least, let's look towards the future. And there are a few models here that are going to be found over the next couple years, but which ones will actually make it are a little bit tougher. That's why I'm looking at 2 specifically. Scout, which has a lot of funding from Volkswagen and is definitely on the more adventure side, more capable when it comes to off-roading, which means not very efficient when it comes to EVs. I'm curious to see what that looks like, but we have a truck and an SUV. That gets a close second to this. This is the Rivian R2, a scaled down version of what we found in the R1S, now a 2-row instead of a 3-row, but most importantly, this is on its way probably in the next few months, and it's going to start around $45,000. At least that's what they said when it was first announced. It's now a 2-passenger, 5-row vehicle, plenty of space inside because it is nice, big, and boxy, but we also get up to 300 miles of driving range. There will be a performance version that's going to get you 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. Not necessary, but certainly fun. And it doesn't have to be an enormous vehicle because there's some clever storage options. They don't have a gear tunnel here like we found in the truck. We do find a front trunk up there, but they've also found a way to make a little bit more space back here by having a roll down window. Not something you find in a whole lot of vehicles, but if you do have something that's extra long, you don't need a vehicle to match, at least not all the time. That's it for this video. Obviously, we could not cover every vehicle out here on the show floor, but I think that's great news. That means there are so many more out there. Just want to make sure that we covered the ones that you were likely most shopping for. I think the only thing we really missed is some performance cars, although I found a few here. There are also some more performance luxury cars out there. Let me know if we want to cover more of those next time, or if there's anyone here that we should get in our driveway at home that so far we have not, because trust me, I could spend a lot more time with each and every one of these. If you had a favorite or there's a category you're shopping in you'd like to get more coverage on, go ahead and let me know down in the comments, and you might be able to hear our coverage on that or our thoughts on that specific category on our podcast at the Auto Buyer's Guide podcast. You can find that on YouTube or where you listen to your favorite podcast. I do have a few more steps to get in before the end of the day and make sure I see or at least get a glance at just about everything else here on the show floor. So till next time, I'll see you down the road.